On June 5, 2012, in the Russian city of Angarsk, the Siberian Regional Investigative Office issued a startling decree. Every single police officer in Angarsk and the surrounding districts was ordered to undergo a mandatory DNA test. No explanation was given. The atmosphere grew tense, and while police departments formally demanded a reason for this unprecedented mass testing, they were met with silence. The investigation eventually expanded across most of Siberia, supervised directly by the Russian Ministry of Health. In total, 3,800 officers and 5,600 personnel were tested. The secret was kept for weeks until June 23, 2012, when a chilling announcement broke on national television. The werewolf has finally been caught. Welcome to Shadowed, where the truth hides in the dark. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and stay with us, because things only get darker from here. Today, I will tell you the story of a killer who emerged only after midnight, a predator who ended lives using methods beyond human comprehension, a killer who, even after his capture, used a brilliant legal trick to escape execution and the brutal labor camps of Siberia. Believe it or not, to this day, he has achieved his ultimate dream of becoming a star and the main subject of Russian media. The story started on April 16, 1992, in Angarsk. A local resident called the police after discovering a girl's body in the forest near the highway. The scene was horrific. The victim was semi-naked, and her skin had turned blue from the freezing cold. Forensic analysis revealed she died at 1 a.m. Despite the freezing temperatures, her body was covered in wounds. There were deep knife stabs, but also strange circular punctures, as if the killer had tortured her with a screwdriver. But the most gruesome detail was that after she died, the killer cut open her chest, removed her heart, and ate parts of it. The victim was identified as 29-year-old Stasia. She was last seen only 1 hour before her death at a local pub with her fiancé. Around midnight, they had a heated argument and left separately. Stasia stayed behind for 15 minutes, then walked out alone. 1 hour later, she was dead. The first assumption was simple: a drunk girl leaving a bar, a victim of robbery or assault. But the forensics told a different story. Stasia had not been sexually assaulted, and her money and ID were still with her. It wasn't robbery, and it wasn't assault. So, what was it? Before we continue, tell me your theories in the comments. The investigation hit a dead end until 2 weeks later, when a second crime occurred, identical to Stasia's in every eerie detail. The victim was 24-year-old Karen, a waitress at a local bar. She also died at 1 a.m., but this time, the weapon was different. It was clear the killer used a hammer or a baseball bat. Her body was shattered with 18 broken bones. The fatal blow came when the killer grabbed her by the head and slammed her repeatedly against a tree, crushing her skull so violently that parts of her brain were found outside. Just like the first victim, the killer had cut open her abdomen and consumed parts of her liver. The city was in a state of panic. There was no motive, only pure, animalistic savagery. 1 month later, the third victim appeared, Lorraine. Her death was a direct challenge to the police. They found her body on one day, but her head was missing. 5 days later, the head appeared on the side of a highway. The killer had buried it in the snow to preserve her features, then dug it up and placed it where the police would be sure to find it. The investigators began to notice a common pattern. All the victims had blonde hair, blue eyes, and a slightly curvy build. They all disappeared after midnight after being seen at local bars. The hunt for the Werewolf of Angarsk had officially begun. You might think that blonde hair and blue eyes are common in Russia and wouldn't stand out, but that's not the case here. Angarsk is a border-adjacent city, home to many migrants from Mongolia, whose features differ greatly from the Slavic Russian look. This means the killer was intentionally hunting these specific traits. In the third crime, the brutality reached a new level. The killer cut open the victim's body and removed her kidney. At first, the police thought they were dealing with a human cannibal. However, forensic analysis of the frozen saliva on the organs revealed a shocking truth. The one who had gnawed on the organs was a dog, or possibly a wolf. This is where the media's negative influence took hold. When the police announced that the organs had been bitten by an animal, the press took the story out of this world. To grab headlines and chase fame, newspapers began publishing wild theories. One claimed that werewolves were real. Another declared that the midnight werewolf had returned. People became so obsessed with these myths that they almost forgot there was a human monster among them. The media frenzy was chaotic. One day they'd claim werewolves were real, and the next they'd dismiss it as folklore. The confusion lasted until the fourth crime occurred 2 months later, on July 1st, 1992. But before we get to that, let's settle the dog versus wolf debate. The official Russian police statement, based on forensic precision, confirmed it was a dog. Wolves were extremely rare in that region. The police knew that admitting to a wolf theory would only fuel the media's dinosaur-sized exaggerations. The fourth victim was a woman named Leah. She shared the same physical traits as the previous three. And again, there was no sign of robbery or assault. But this time, the killer's artistry was terrifying. Leah's body was found buried vertically in the snow. Only her head was visible. 20 centimeters away lay her face, literally. The killer had surgically scalped her with such precision that the underlying facial muscles were untouched. He was as skilled as a butcher. Forensics showed that Leah died from hypothermia. Her heart stopped as her body temperature plummeted while buried in the snow. Strangely, there were no struggle marks. It was as if Leah had voluntarily sat in the snow while the killer covered her up. The investigation revealed that Leah, a 39-year-old divorcee, frequented a local pub and often drank until she lost consciousness. This explained why she didn't resist. After she died, the killer sat atop the snow mound, meticulously removed her face, cut out her tongue, and threw it several meters away. By now, a pattern emerged. All 4 crimes happened on a Tuesday, and the bodies were always found on a Wednesday. The werewolf myth became a local reality. People believed the killer transformed every Tuesday at midnight. To this day, the city of Angarsk is paralyzed by this legacy. Shops close early, and by 5 p.m. on Tuesdays, the streets are ghost towns. A habit born of fear that persists decades later. The killer, however, seemed mocked by the superstitions. He decided to escalate his activity in a more alert city. He traveled to Vladivostok, far from Angarsk, to prove he could strike anywhere. In his first move there, he didn't kill just one person. He killed 2 at once, 20-year-old Tatiana and 19-year-old Yulia. And what happened next is something you truly won't believe. The 2 girls who fled Angarsk for the coast did so out of pure terror. They told their friends they were going to the seaside city of Vladivostok, believing they could finally stay out late and enjoy their lives without fearing the werewolf. But fate is cruel. All sources confirm that what happened next was a chilling coincidence. The killer happened to be in the same city at the same time. He didn't track them from Angarsk. They simply walked right into his hands. The 2 girls went to a bar near the sea, and after a night of drinking, they lost awareness. The killer was waiting. He drove them to the highway on the outskirts of the city and committed unspeakable horrors. Tatiana was found with her head completely scalped, and the second girl was dismembered and piled into a pyramid shape. This level of brutality sparked a wild theory that the killer was an agent backed by the United States to destabilize Russia from within following the collapse of the Soviet Union. But the core questions remained. Why did all the victims look alike? Why did the crimes only happen on Tuesdays? And most importantly, how was he convincing these women to get into his car? 2 of the victims, Stasia and Leah, had their own cars. They wouldn't just take a taxi. Police reviewed surveillance footage, theorizing that the killer must be a handsome, charming man who sat with them at bars and lured them away. This theory held until July 26, 1998, when the killer's 29th crime took place in Angarsk. But this time, by the grace of God, the predator failed, and a truth no one could have imagined was revealed. 15-year-old Svetlana was waiting for her mother outside the restaurant where she worked. It was late, and a kind man in a car pulled up. He told her it wasn't safe for a young girl to be alone and offered her a ride. Trusting his professional appearance and his car, she accepted. During the drive, he was incredibly polite, sharing stories and adventures. When he asked her age and she replied, 15, the man was visibly shocked. He had assumed she was 25. He began to stutter, slowing the car down and speeding up nervously. Suddenly, he veered into a side road toward the forest. He dragged her out, beat her, and ordered her to strip. When she refused, he slammed her head against a tree so hard she lost consciousness. Just then, by pure luck, the sound of a police siren echoed in the distance. The killer panicked, leaving Svetlana for dead, and fled. Svetlana survived. After waking from a 10-day coma, she dropped a bombshell. The person who had picked her up wasn't a stranger or a taxi driver. It was a policeman in a marked patrol car. He had told her, "Get in with me. It's safer than a taxi where you might get kidnapped." The news that the killer was an officer shattered the city. Svetlana's life was now in grave danger. She survived 2 assassination attempts because the KGB, not the local police, had placed her under 24-hour protection. At the time, the police force was riddled with corruption. If the werewolf was one of their own, he knew secrets that could take down powerful men. The KGB, however, viewed the case as a matter of national security, still suspecting a foreign plot. The investigation eventually narrowed down to 3 suspects. One of those names was Mikhail Popkov. Mikhail Popkov was born in Angarsk in 1964. He wasn't just a policeman. He was a man who knew the law as well as he knew his own name. Despite Svetlana's traumatized reaction when she saw his photo, screaming and tearing it apart, Mikhail's wife, a high-ranking officer and instructor at the police academy, used her influence to provide him with an ironclad alibi. Not only was he released, but the KGB returned him to his job with honorary compensation, a payment given to officers whose reputations are wrongly tarnished. The investigation hit a wall. Authorities claimed the killer must be a migrant worker, a truck driver, or a doctor, anyone but a police officer. The file was closed, but the nightmare continued. Mikhail simply changed his strategy. He began targeting women whom society often ignored, migrants and sex workers, believing no one would seek justice for them. In 2006, he met a woman named Victoria. What Mikhail didn't know was that Victoria had a hidden tape recorder. She was required by the nightclub where she worked to record her interactions with clients. The police later found the recording on her body, a haunting audio file of her final moments and the torture she endured. Yet once again, Mikhail escaped. His wife's connections and the lack of clarity in the recording allowed him to walk free and return to work as if nothing had happened. Silence fell for 6 years. People wanted to believe the werewolf was a myth that had finally died. But in 2012, Mikhail claimed his final victim, 37-year-old Zoya. Zoya did what no other victim could. She fought back. As she struggled for her life, she scratched Mikhail, trapping his skin and hair under her fingernails. With the advancement of DNA technology, the evidence was undeniable. On June 23, 2012, Mikhail Popkov was finally arrested. This is where Mikhail's brilliance turned sinister. Knowing the Russian Duma was debating the abolition of the death penalty, he instructed his lawyer to delay the trial. He faked heart attacks and nervous breakdowns, dragging the process out until 2013. By then, the death penalty had been abolished and replaced with life imprisonment in Siberia's brutal labor camps. To avoid the immediate horrors of those camps, Mikhail began rationing his confessions. Every time he was about to be transferred, he would reveal a new crime, forcing investigators to keep him in a local detention center for further inquiry. He has done this over 6 times. To date, he has confessed to 81 murders, leading police to the exact locations of the bodies every time. When asked why he did it, Mikhail claimed he was cleansing the streets of Angarsk. He would pick up intoxicated women in his patrol car, tell them he was punishing them for being drunk by making them stand in the cold for 30 minutes, and then watch as they succumbed to hypothermia. The motive was deeply personal. All his victims resembled his mother, a woman who had abandoned him to the streets as a child. Today, Mikhail Popkov relishes his notoriety. He considers himself a star, saying he trends whenever he chooses to reveal a new secret. He views DNA science as an enemy of morality that stopped his mission of purifying society. This was the story of the Werewolf of Angarsk. What do you think? Should the Russian authorities wait for more confessions? Or is it time to send him to the depths of Siberia once and for all? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.